The sound of pounding hooves against hard-packed dirt broke the silence of the Montana wilderness as Dawson Griffith raced his stallion across the open plain, his heart thundering louder than the horse's galloping stride. The sun was setting behind the jagged mountains, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, but Dawson had no time to appreciate the beauty of his surroundings. His daughter was sick, terribly sick, and he was running out of time. "Hold on, Lily," he whispered, leaning forward in the saddle. "Just hold on, sweetheart." It was 1876, and the small settlement of Pine Creek was still a day's ride away. Too far. Much too far. Dawson's ranch, nestled in the foothills of the mountains, had always seemed like paradise until today. Now its isolation felt like a curse. His wife Emma had died bringing Lily into the world 4 years ago, and since then, it had been just the two of them against the world. The thought of losing his little girl sent a wave of panic through his chest that nearly stole his breath. Lily had been feverish for 2 days, her small body burning up despite the cool compresses he'd applied. When she'd started struggling to breathe that morning, he knew he couldn't handle it alone. He needed help, professional help, but the doctor in Pine Creek was too far away. The smoke from a chimney in the distance caught his eye, rising up from a small homestead tucked into a grove of cottonwoods. Dawson hadn't realized anyone had settled in this part of the valley. Hope surged through him as he changed direction, urging his tired horse toward the promise of human assistance. As he approached, he could make out a modest cabin with a small barn and corral. Chickens scattered as he thundered into the yard, pulling his horse to an abrupt halt. "Hello." He shouted, dismounting in one fluid motion, his daughter cradled carefully against his chest. "I need help, my daughter's sick." The door to the cabin swung open, and a woman stepped out, wiping her hands on her apron. She was tall and slender, with honey-brown hair pulled back from her face, revealing striking green eyes that widened at the sight of the distressed cowboy holding a clearly ill child. "Bring her inside," she said without hesitation, her voice calm and authoritative. "Quickly now." Dawson hurried up the steps, relief washing over him even as fear continued to grip his heart. "Thank you, madam. I didn't know where else to go. My ranch is half a day's ride from here, and Pine Creek's even further." "I'm Willow James," she said, clearing a small table and gesturing for him to lay Lily down. "I'm a midwife by training, but I've treated my share of fevers and ailments." "Dawson Griffith," he replied, carefully setting Lily on the table. "This is my daughter, Lily. She's 4. The fever started 2 days ago, but today she's been burning up something fierce, and her breathing's not right." Willow moved with practiced efficiency, placing her hand on Lily's forehead before pressing her ear to the child's chest. Her frown deepened as she listened to the labored breathing. "Pneumonia, I suspect," she said, straightening. "She needs willow bark tea for the fever, and I have a mustard plaster that might help draw out the infection." She looked at Dawson with serious eyes. "I'll do everything I can, Mr. Griffith, but I must be honest, she's very sick." "Do whatever you have to," Dawson said, his voice breaking. "Please, she's all I have left in this world." Willow nodded, already gathering supplies from various cupboards and shelves. "I'll need fresh water from the well. There's a bucket by the door. And there's a pot of stew on the stove. You look like you could use some nourishment yourself." Dawson hesitated, reluctant to leave Lily's side even for a moment. "Go," Willow said gently. "I'll be right here with her. You'll be no good to your daughter if you collapse from exhaustion." Recognizing the wisdom in her words, Dawson grabbed the bucket and headed outside. As he drew water from the well, he glanced back at the small cabin, silently praying to a god he'd nearly stopped believing in after Emma's death. "Please, not Lily too, not my little girl." Inside, Willow worked methodically, crushing herbs and heating water. She loosened Lily's clothing and bathed her feverish skin with cool water, murmuring soft reassurances even though the child was barely conscious. "You have a brave papa, little one," she whispered, stroking the girl's damp blonde hair away from her forehead. "And you're going to be just as brave, aren't you? We're going to fight this together." When Dawson returned, he found Willow singing softly as she prepared a pungent mixture in a small bowl. She looked up as he entered, her green eyes determined. "Set the water there," she instructed. "Then come hold her up. We need to get some medicine into her." For the next hour, they worked together to treat Lily's fever. Dawson held his daughter while Willow coaxed small sips of willow bark tea between her parched lips. They applied a mustard plaster to her chest, and Willow showed Dawson how to gently tap on the child's back to help loosen the congestion in her lungs. As night fell fully, Lily's condition worsened. Her breathing became more labored, and the fever climbed higher. Willow moved her to the small bed in the corner of the cabin and directed Dawson to build up the fire. "It's going to be a long night," she said, her face grim as she prepared more herbal remedies. "I shouldn't have waited so long," Dawson said, self-recrimination evident in his voice. "I thought it was just a childhood fever that would pass." "You couldn't have known," Willow replied, her voice softening. "Children get fevers all the time. You brought her here as soon as you realized how serious it was. That's what matters now." As the hours ticked by, Dawson learned that Willow had come west from Boston 2 years earlier, following the death of her husband. She'd trained as a midwife under her grandmother's tutelage and had worked alongside a doctor in Boston before deciding to start anew in Montana territory. "I needed space to breathe," she explained as she wrung out another cool cloth for Lily's forehead. "After Thomas died, the city felt like it was closing in on me. Out here, there's room for grief to expand until it doesn't feel quite so suffocating." Dawson nodded, understanding completely. "That's why I stayed on the ranch after Emma passed. Couldn't bear to leave the place where I could still feel her presence but needed the openness too." Around midnight, Lily's fever spiked dangerously high. She began to convulse, her small body shaking uncontrollably. Dawson watched in horror, frozen in place until Willow's sharp command broke through his panic. "The washtub. Fill it with cool water, not cold." Quickly, he sprang into action, hauling water from the well while Willow stripped the child down to her underclothes. Together, they lowered Lily into the tub, supporting her head as Willow gently sponged water over her burning skin. "Talk to her," Willow urged. "Let her hear your voice." Dawson knelt beside the tub, his large, calloused hand looking out of place against his daughter's delicate face. "I'm here, Lily Flower," he said, using the nickname that always made her giggle. "Papa's right here. You're going to be just fine, sweetheart. Miss Willow is taking good care of you." Slowly, the convulsions subsided and Lily's breathing, though still labored, became more regular. Willow nodded in approval. "That's it," she murmured. "She's fighting. She's a strong girl, your Lily." They dried her off and dressed her in one of Willow's soft nightshirts, which engulfed the child's tiny frame. Back in bed, Lily seemed to rest more peacefully, though her chest still rattled with each breath. "You should get some rest," Willow told Dawson, noting the dark circles under his eyes. "There's a cot in the lean-to out back where I keep supplies. I'll watch over her." "I can't leave her," Dawson insisted. "Then at least take that chair by the fire," Willow compromised. "You'll be no use to her if you're dead on your feet when morning comes." Reluctantly, Dawson settled into the rocking chair, intending only to rest his eyes for a moment. Exhaustion overcame him, and he fell into a fitful sleep. He woke with a start some time later, disoriented until his eyes found Willow, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding Lily's hand. The oil lamp had been turned down low, casting the cabin in soft, warm light. Willow was singing something a lullaby. He didn't recognize her voice, low and sweet. She was using a small cloth to wipe the sweat from Lily's brow, her movements tender and practiced. Something inside Dawson's chest shifted at the sight. In that moment, with her guard down, believing him asleep, Willow's face showed a vulnerability he hadn't glimpsed before. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she cared for his daughter with the same devotion a mother might show. He must have made a sound because Willow looked up, quickly composing her features. "She's holding her own," she reported. "The fever hasn't broken, but it hasn't risen either. That's something to be grateful for." Dawson moved to the bed, kneeling beside it to stroke Lily's cheek. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found you." "You'd have found a way," Willow said. "Fathers like you always do." The night stretched on, with Willow and Dawson taking turns at Lily's bedside. They spoke in hushed tones about their lives before Montana, about the dreams that had brought them west, and about the losses that had shaped them. Dawson learned that Willow had lost a baby son just months after her husband died, a double blow that had nearly broken her. "Sometimes I think I came out here not to start over but to disappear," she confessed in the darkest hour of the night. "But then someone needs help with a birthing or a sickness, and I remember why I was given these skills in the first place." In turn, Dawson told her about meeting Emma, the banker's daughter who'd scandalized Boston society by running off with a cowboy bound for the Western Territories. "She loved it out here," he said, smiling at the memory. "Never regretted leaving that life behind. Said the mountains spoke to her soul in a way city streets never could." "She sounds like a remarkable woman," Willow said softly. She was. Dawson gazed at his sleeping daughter. "Lily has her spirit stubborn and bright and full of wonder." As dawn approached, Lily's breathing grew more labored again. Willow prepared a steam tent, draping blankets over a frame above the bed and placing a pot of boiling water infused with camphor underneath. She and Dawson took turns sitting with Lily inside the makeshift tent, the steam helping to ease her congested lungs. "Come on, little one," Willow whispered, holding the girl's hand. "Fight for us. Your papa needs you." Outside the tent, Dawson paced, each wheezing breath from his daughter like a knife to his heart. "Is there nothing else we can do?" he asked, desperation clear in his voice. Willow emerged from the tent, her face flushed from the steam, tendrils of damp hair curling around her face. "There's one thing," she said hesitantly. "My grandmother taught me a mixture of honey, whiskey, and lemon with certain herbs. It's potent, especially for one so young but in dire circumstances." "Do it," Dawson said without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." Willow nodded, gathering the ingredients. As she worked, Dawson watched her capable hands measuring and mixing with precision. He found himself studying the curve of her neck, the determined set of her jaw, the gentleness in her eyes whenever she glanced toward Lily. This woman who had been a stranger mere hours ago now held his daughter's life in her hands, and somehow he trusted her completely. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced since Emma died, this absolute faith in another person. "It's ready," Willow announced, bringing a small cup to the bedside. "Help me raise her up." Together they lifted Lily into a sitting position, her head lolling against Dawson's chest. Willow brought the cup to the child's lips, coaxing her to swallow small sips of the potent mixture. "That's it, brave girl," she encouraged. "Just a little more." When Lily had consumed as much of the medicine as they could get into her, they settled her back against the pillows. Willow took her small hand, stroking it gently. "Now we wait," she said, looking up at Dawson with tired eyes. "And we hope. And we pray," Dawson added, surprising himself. It had been years since he'd spoken to God with any sincerity, but tonight he found himself remembering the faith of his childhood. Willow nodded. "Yes, we pray." As the night gave way to the first pale light of dawn, Lily's fever raged on. Willow refused to leave the child's side, bathing her burning skin with cool cloths, singing softly, and holding her hand through each labored breath. Dawson alternated between sitting at the bedside and pacing the small cabin, his fear a living thing inside his chest. "She's not getting better," he said at one point, his voice breaking. "The fever has to break on its own," Willow replied, though her own worry was evident in the tight lines around her mouth. "We've done everything we can to help her body fight." As dawn broke, filtering soft golden light through the cabin windows, Willow closed her eyes briefly, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. When she opened them again, she found Dawson watching her, his expression unreadable. "You should rest," he said quietly. "I can sit with her for a while." "I'm fine," Willow insisted, but the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for the cloth in the water basin betrayed her fatigue. "Please," Dawson said, moving to her side. "You've been awake all night, just rest for an hour." He gently took the cloth from her fingers, his hand lingering against hers for a moment longer than necessary. The touch, simple as it was, sent an unexpected warmth through Willow's tired body. She looked up at him, suddenly aware of how close he stood, of the earnest concern in his deep blue eyes. "An hour," she conceded, rising from the chair beside the bed. "Wake me if there's any change at all." Dawson nodded, taking her place as she moved to the rocking chair by the fire. Within minutes, Willow had fallen into an exhausted sleep, her body curled against the wooden frame of the chair. Alone with his thoughts, Dawson turned his attention to his daughter. In the soft morning light, Lily's face appeared even more flushed, her breathing still labored. He dipped the cloth in the cool water and gently bathed her face and neck, whispering words of encouragement. "Your mama is watching over you," he told her softly. "And Miss Willow isn't going to let you go. Neither am I, Lily Flower. You keep fighting." As the sun rose higher, Dawson found his gaze repeatedly drawn to the sleeping woman in the rocking chair. There was something about Willow James that stirred feelings he'd thought long buried. It wasn't just gratitude for her help, though that ran deep. It was something in the gentle strength of her hands, the compassion in her eyes, the way she'd fought for his daughter all through the night as though Lily were her own. A soft whimper from the bed snapped his attention back to Lily. Her eyes were fluttering and her small hand had tightened around his finger. "Lily," he whispered, leaning closer. "Can you hear me, sweetheart?" The child's eyes opened briefly, unfocused and glassy with fever. "Papa," she breathed, the word barely audible. "I'm here," Dawson assured her, his heart leaping at this small sign of awareness. "Papa's right here." Lily's eyes closed again, but her grip on his finger remained. Dawson looked over at Willow, debating whether to wake her, but decided against it. Let her rest. This small moment of consciousness was hopeful, but Lily was still burning with fever. For the next hour, Dawson continued to bathe Lily's face and neck with cool water, speaking softly to her about the ranch, about the new foal in the stable, about the wildflowers that would soon carpet the meadows. When Willow finally stirred, stretching her cramped limbs, he felt an odd sense of relief at having her green eyes open and alert once more. "She woke briefly," he reported as Willow approached the bed. "Just for a moment," said Papa. Hope brightened Willow's tired face. "That's good." "That's very good." She pressed her palm to Lily's forehead, then frowned slightly. "Still too hot. Let's try another dose of the willow bark tea." As the morning progressed, they worked together in a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural, as if they'd been caring for Lily as a team for years rather than hours. Dawson found himself studying Willow when she wasn't looking, the way she tucked strands of hair behind her ear, the careful precision of her movements, the softness in her expression whenever she spoke to Lily. "You're good with her," he commented as Willow coaxed another spoonful of medicine into Lily's mouth. Natural-like, a shadow crossed Willow's face, there and gone so quickly Dawson might have imagined it. "I've always loved children," she said simply, "even before I lost my own." The pain in her voice was evident despite her attempt to hide it. Dawson found himself reaching across the bed to cover her hand with his own. "I'm sorry," he said. "Truly?" Willow looked down at their hands, then up at his face. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, a recognition of shared grief that needed no words. She turned her hand beneath his, their palms meeting, fingers interlacing briefly before she gently pulled away. "I'll make us some breakfast," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "We both need to keep up our strength for Lily's sake." Dawson nodded, watching as she moved to the stove, her back straight, her shoulders set with determination. This woman was a puzzle, strong yet vulnerable, reserved yet deeply compassionate. In the midst of his fear for Lily, he found himself increasingly drawn to Willow James and the quiet strength she embodied. The hours of the day stretched on, with Lily's condition remaining critical. Her fever continued to rage, and her breathing grew more labored as congestion settled deeper in her lungs. By mid-afternoon, Willow's face had grown grave as she listened to the child's chest. "The infection is worsening," she said, looking up at Dawson with worried eyes. "We need something stronger than the mustard plaster." She explained a treatment her grandmother had taught her, a poultice made from certain herbs that would draw out the infection. "It's powerful medicine," she cautioned, "and the process isn't pleasant. It will make her skin red and irritated, but it might help clear her lungs." "Do it," Dawson said without hesitation. "Whatever it takes," Willow nodded, gathering supplies from her stores. She crushed dried herbs with a mortar and pestle, adding oils and mixing them into a paste that filled the cabin with a pungent, medicinal smell. "I'll need your help," she told Dawson. We'll have to remove her nightshirt and apply this directly to her chest and back. Then we wrap her in flannel to keep the poultice in place. Together, they carefully undress the feverish child, Dawson's large hands surprisingly gentle as he supported Lily's limp form. Willow applied the poultice, her touch efficient yet tender, while Dawson held his daughter upright. "You're good at this," Willow observed as they worked together to wrap the flannel around Lily's chest. "Most men I've known would be all thumbs with such a delicate task." Dawson's lips curved in a sad smile. "When it's been just the two of us for so long, you learn. Had to do everything for her since she was a tiny baby, dress her, feed her, braid her hair." He gently tucked a strand of Lily's blonde hair behind her ear. "Made plenty of mistakes along the way, but we managed." "You've done more than manage," Willow said softly. "She's clearly well loved and cared for. That's more than many children get, even with two parents." Their eyes met over Lily's head, and again Dawson felt that strange connection, as if Willow could see straight through to his heart, understanding parts of him he rarely revealed to anyone. The poultice seemed to help at first. Lily's breathing eased slightly, and for a brief period in the late afternoon, her fever appeared to lower. Dawson allowed himself a moment of hope, even venturing outside to tend to his horse and gather more firewood for the night ahead. As he worked, he found himself glancing frequently at the cabin, drawn by the warm light in the windows and the knowledge that inside, Willow was caring for his daughter with the same devotion he would give himself. It was a strange feeling, this trust in a woman he'd known for less than a day. When he returned to the cabin, arms laden with firewood, he found Willow singing softly as she stirred something on the stove. The domesticity of the scene struck him with unexpected force. How right it felt to step through that door and find her there, how the small space seemed warmer and more inviting with her presence. But the momentary peace was shattered when Lily began to cough harsh, racking coughs that shook her tiny frame and left her gasping for breath. The fever, which had seemed to be retreating, surged back with renewed vigor. "The poultice isn't enough," Willow said, her voice tight with concern as she listened to Lily's lungs. "The congestion is getting worse." Fear clawed at Dawson's throat. "What else can we do?" Willow hesitated, then said, "There's one more treatment, something my grandmother used only in the most desperate cases. It's called cupping. It creates suction on the skin to draw blood to the surface and help pull out the infection." "Will it hurt her?" Dawson asked, his protective instincts flaring. "It's uncomfortable," Willow admitted. "But it might save her life. At this point, I fear we have few options left." Dawson swallowed hard, then nodded. "Show me what to do." Willow gathered small glass cups and a bottle of alcohol. She explained the process, how the alcohol would be lit inside each cup and quickly placed on Lily's back, creating a vacuum that would pull at the skin and hopefully help draw out the infection. "I'll need you to hold her still," Willow instructed. Even in her weakened state, she may try to pull away from the sensation. It was difficult to watch. Each time Willow placed a cup on Lily's back, the child whimpered softly, her body tensing despite her semi-conscious state. Dawson murmured reassurances, his large hands gentle on her shoulders, his heart breaking at her distress. Willow worked with focused intensity, her face set in lines of concentration as she placed the cups in precise locations across Lily's back. When she was finished, she sat back on her heels, exhaling slowly. "Now we wait," she said. 20 minutes, and then I'll remove them." Those 20 minutes felt like an eternity to Dawson. He sat beside the bed, holding Lily's hand, while Willow prepared more willow bark tea for when the cupping was complete. The silence between them was heavy with shared concern, but also a growing bond forged through this fight for his daughter's life. When Willow finally removed the cups, angry red circles marked Lily's back. Dawson winced at the sight, but Willow assured him the marks would fade quickly. "Listen," she said, pressing her ear to Lily's chest. "Her breathing is easier, not clear yet, but better." Hope flickered in Dawson's chest. "The fever," Willow placed her hand on Lily's forehead. "Still high, but perhaps not quite as burning as before." She straightened, meeting Dawson's gaze directly. "She's fighting hard, Mr. Griffith, and so are we." "Dawson," he corrected quietly. "After all we've been through, seems right you should use my given name." A small smile touched Willow's lips. Dawson, then, and you must call me Willow. As evening approached once more, they settled into a routine of caring for Lily, bathing her heated skin, coaxing small sips of medicine and broth between her lips, monitoring her breathing and fever. Through it all, they talked in low voices, sharing stories of their lives before this moment had brought them together. Dawson told Willow about his ranch, the herd of cattle he was building, the horses he bred and trained, the dreams he had for expanding someday. "It's good land," he said. "Rich pasture, clean water, sheltered valleys for winter grazing. Emma and I chose it together. She had an eye for beauty, my wife, said the first time she saw that valley, she knew it was meant to be our home." "She sounds wonderful," Willow said, arranging Lily's blankets more comfortably. "She was," Dawson smiled at the memory. "Headstrong and full of life. Everyone said I'd never tame her, but I never wanted to. Loved her wildness, her passion for everything she did." His smile faded. When she died, it was like all the color went out of the world for a time. "Only thing that kept me going was this little one." He brushed his fingers over Lily's hair, his expression tender. "First time she smiled at me, it was like Emma was looking out through her eyes, telling me to carry on." He glanced up, finding Willow watching him with an unreadable expression. "I imagine you understand that better than most," Willow nodded, her eyes distant. "After Thomas and the baby died, I thought I'd never feel anything but grief again. It becomes a part of you, that emptiness, but eventually—" She paused, searching for words. "Eventually, you start to notice things again. The way sunlight filters through leaves, the smell of fresh bread, the sound of children laughing." She looked down at Lily. "The satisfaction of using your skills to help someone in need." "Is that why you settled all the way out here?" Dawson asked. "Most women on their own might choose a town at least." Willow's smile held a hint of mischief that transformed her face, making her look younger, less careworn. "I've never been most women, Mr. Griffith Dawson. Besides, people need help everywhere, out here perhaps more than most places." "Well, I'm grateful you chose this spot," Dawson said sincerely. "If you hadn't been here—" He couldn't finish the thought. The possibility of losing Lily was too terrible to voice. Willow reached across the bed, briefly touching his arm. "She's going to pull through," she said with quiet confidence. "I can feel it." As night fell once more, Lily's condition remained grave but stable. The cupping seemed to have helped her breathing, but the fever continued to burn. Willow insisted that Dawson eat something, preparing a simple meal of beans, bacon, and cornbread. "You'll be no good to her if you collapse," she reminded him when he tried to refuse. "Just a few bites." They ate at the small table by the window, their attention never straying far from the small figure in the bed. Dawson found himself watching Willow in the lamplight, the graceful movement of her hands, the thoughtful expression in her eyes, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when it fell forward. "You mentioned you came west 2 years ago," he said, breaking a brief silence. "How did you end up in this particular valley?" Willow's lips curved in a small smile. "Chance, really. I was traveling with a wagon train heading to Oregon, but I never intended to go that far. When we passed through this territory, something about these mountains spoke to me." She glanced toward the window, though the night had long since hidden the landscape from view. "I left the train at Fort Benton and made my way south, looking for somewhere that felt right. When I came to this valley, I just knew." "Knew what?" Dawson asked, genuinely curious. "That this was where I could heal," she said simply. "Where I could be useful and find peace at the same time." She looked at him directly. "I imagine it was similar for you and your wife." Dawson nodded. "Emma said she felt the mountains welcoming her. Sounds fanciful, but I knew what she meant." A small sound from the bed drew their attention. Lily was stirring, her face contorted with discomfort. They moved as one to her side, Willow checking her temperature while Dawson took her small hand in his. "Still too hot," Willow murmured. "Let's try the willow bark tea again." Through the long hours of the night, they took turns at Lily's bedside. When Dawson insisted that Willow rest, she curled up in the rocking chair rather than taking the bed in the small alcove off the main room. "I want to be close," she explained, "in case she takes a turn." Dawson understood completely. He sat on the floor beside the bed, his back against the wall, watching his daughter's face in the soft glow of the banked fire. Despite his exhaustion, sleep eluded him. His mind was too full of fear for Lily, of gratitude toward Willow, of unexpected feelings stirring beneath it all. Sometime in the darkest hours of the night, Lily's breathing changed. The rattling wheeze that had characterized each breath grew more pronounced, and she began to thrash weakly beneath the covers. Dawson was on his feet instantly, reaching for her just as Willow hurried from the rocking chair. "She can't breathe," Dawson said, panic rising in his voice as Lily gasped for air, her lips taking on a bluish tinge. "Willow, she can't breathe." Willow moved with calm efficiency, though her eyes betrayed her own fear. "Lift her up," she instructed. "We need to clear her airway." She positioned herself behind Lily as Dawson held the child upright and began to tap firmly on the girl's back, working methodically from bottom to top. "Come on, little one," she encouraged. "Cough it up for us." After what seemed an eternity, Lily gave a weak cough, then another, stronger one. Suddenly she was racked with coughing, her tiny body convulsing with the effort as thick, greenish mucus came up. Willow quickly grabbed a cloth to catch it, continuing to tap Lily's back until the worst of the coughing subsided. "That's it," she said, relief evident in her voice. "That's what we needed. She's clearing the infection." Dawson's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. Will she be all right now?" "Not immediately," Willow cautioned. "But this is a good sign. Her body is fighting back." They settled Lily against the pillows again, her breathing noticeably easier despite her continued fever. Dawson found himself trembling with the aftermath of fear, and when Willow placed a steadying hand on his arm, he covered it with his own, needing the contact. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't have words." "You don't need them," Willow assured him, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "Just seeing her breathe easier is thanks enough." Their gazes held for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Willow gently withdrew her hand, turning back to Lily with professional composure. "Let's get some more tea into her while she's a bit more alert," she suggested. "And then perhaps both of us should try to rest. Dawn isn't far off." But rest continued to elude them both. Lily's coughing fits, though productive and ultimately helpful, were distressing to watch. Each time, Dawson and Willow worked together to support the child through the painful spasms, speaking words of encouragement and wiping away the infectious discharge. Between these episodes, they talked in low voices, sharing more of their lives. Dawson learned that Willow had grown up in a Boston household where education was valued for daughters as well as sons. Her father, a professor, had encouraged her interest in medicine and healing, even when society deemed such pursuits unladylike. He said talent should never go unused, regardless of whether one wore trousers or skirts, she recalled with a fond smile. "When my grandmother offered to train me as a midwife, he supported it wholeheartedly, even against my mother's objections." "He sounds like a wise man," Dawson commented. "Would have gotten along well with Emma's father. He raised her to speak her mind and follow her heart, society be damned." Willow laughed softly. No wonder she chose to run off with a cowboy headed west. She recognized a kindred spirit. As dawn approached, Lily's fever finally broke. The change was dramatic. One moment she was burning with heat, her nightshirt soaked with sweat, and the next, her skin cooled rapidly, almost alarmingly so. Willow quickly wrapped her in warm blankets, checking her pulse and breathing. "This is good," she assured Dawson, who had grown concerned at the sudden change. "Her body has won the fight. The fever is breaking." She placed her hand on Lily's forehead. "See, still warm but not burning anymore." Dawson felt his knees weaken with relief. He sank onto the edge of the bed, taking Lily's small hand between both of his. "She's going to be all right. She's not out of danger completely," Willow cautioned. "The lungs will take time to heal and she's very weak, but yes, I believe the worst has passed." As if in confirmation of Willow's words, Lily's eyes fluttered open, clear and aware for the first time in days. "Papa," she whispered, her voice hoarse but recognizable. "I'm here, Lily Flower," Dawson said, his voice breaking. "Papa's right here." Lily's gaze moved to Willow, curiosity evident despite her weakness. "Who are you?" Willow smiled, brushing a strand of damp hair from the child's forehead. "My name is Willow. I've been helping your papa take care of you." Lily studied her for a moment, then asked with the direct simplicity of childhood, "Are you an angel?" Willow's eyes widened in surprise, then crinkled with amusement. "No, sweetheart, just a friend. You look like the angels in Papa's book," Lily insisted weakly. "The one with the pictures." Dawson felt heat rise to his face. "She means the Bible my mother left me," he explained. "It has some illustrations. There's one of an angel that does have similar." He gestured vaguely embarrassed. "Similar hair," Willow supplied, touching her own honey-brown locks with a small smile. "I'll take that as a compliment, Miss Lily." Lily's eyes were already drooping with exhaustion, but she managed a tiny nod before drifting back to sleep, this time into natural, healing slumber rather than the fever-induced unconsciousness of before. Dawson and Willow looked at each other over the sleeping child, relief and something more complex passing between them. Without thinking, Dawson reached across the bed and took Willow's hand in his. "I don't know how to thank you," he said simply. "What you've done for Lily, for us both, I can never repay." Willow's fingers tightened around his. "There's no debt between friends, Dawson. I did what anyone with my training would do." "No," he said firmly, "not anyone. You fought for her like she was your own." "That's not something that comes from training. That comes from here." He placed his free hand over his heart. Color rose in Willow's cheeks, but she didn't look away. "She's easy to care for," she said softly. "She has her father's spirit." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Then Lily shifted in her sleep, breaking the spell. Willow gently withdrew her hand and stood. "You should both rest properly now," she said. "You can take my bed in the alcove. I'll watch over Lily for a while longer." "I couldn't take your bed," Dawson protested. "You've been up as long as I have." "Then we'll compromise," Willow suggested. "You rest first, and I'll wake you in a few hours to trade places." Exhausted beyond argument, Dawson finally agreed. The small bed in the alcove carried Willow's scent, a combination of lavender, herbs, and something uniquely her. Despite his intention to only close his eyes for a moment, Dawson fell into a deep sleep almost immediately. When he woke, the light filtering through the small window told him it was well into the afternoon. He sat up quickly, disoriented and concerned about Lily. Making his way to the main room, he found Willow seated by the bed, reading from a book while Lily slept peacefully. "Why didn't you wake me?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. Willow looked up, marking her place in the book with a finger. "You needed the rest," she said simply. "And Lily has been doing well. Her fever hasn't returned and her breathing is much easier." Dawson approached the bed, relief washing over him as he saw the healthy color returning to his daughter's cheeks. "How long was I asleep?" "About 6 hours," Willow replied. "And before you protest again, I dozed in the chair while she slept." Dawson shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips despite himself. "Stubborn woman." "Pot, kettle," Willow retorted, her green eyes twinkling with amusement. It was the first time he'd seen her truly smile, not just a polite curve of the lips, but a genuine expression that lit her whole face. The sight of it did something strange to Dawson's insides. Over the next 2 days, Lily's recovery progressed steadily. Her appetite returned, and with it, her natural curiosity and energy, though she tired easily. Dawson found himself watching the interaction between his daughter and Willow with increasing wonder. Willow seemed to instinctively know how to engage with the child, when to encourage activity, and when to insist on rest. How to make medicines palatable by turning them into games, which stories would capture Lily's imagination. For her part, Lily had clearly developed an attachment to the woman who had helped save her life, following Willow around the cabin whenever she had the strength and asking endless questions about herbs and healing. "Papa says you made the bad cough go away," Lily said as Willow changed the bedding on the 3rd morning. "With magic," Willow smiled, tucking the fresh sheets around the little girl. "Not magic, sweetheart. Just knowledge passed down from my grandmother and plants that God put on this earth to help us heal." Lily considered this seriously. "Could I learn too, if you'd like?" Willow replied. "You're certainly smart enough. Maybe we can start with some simple herb lore today, if you're feeling strong enough." The joy in Lily's face at this suggestion made Dawson's heart swell. Standing in the doorway, watching them together, He was struck by how natural they looked. Willow showing Lily how to identify different dried herbs by smell and appearance. The child's blonde head bent close to Willow's honey-brown one, their laughter mingling in the warm air of the cabin. It was a scene of domesticity. He hadn't realized he'd been missing this female presence, this nurturing energy that balanced his own more practical approach to parenting. Lily needed this, he thought, and if he was honest with himself, so did he. That evening, with Lily sleeping soundly and her recovery well underway, Dawson knew it was time to discuss their departure. They had already imposed on Willow's hospitality for 3 days, and while she had never given any indication that their presence was unwelcome, he was acutely aware of the burden they represented. "We should head back to the ranch tomorrow," he said as they sat by the fire, sharing a pot of coffee. "Lily's strong enough to travel if we take it slow, and I've kept you from your normal life long enough." Willow's expression was unreadable in the firelight. "There's no hurry," she said after a moment. "Lily could use another day or 2 of rest before undertaking such a journey." "You've already done more than enough," Dawson insisted. "I can't keep imposing on your kindness." "It's not an imposition," Willow said quietly. She stared into her coffee cup, then added, "It's been nice having people in the cabin again. The silence gets oppressive sometimes." Dawson studied her profile, illuminated by the dancing flames. "It does," he agreed. "Been just Lily and me for so long, I've almost forgotten what adult conversation feels like." Willow smiled slightly. "I talk to my chickens sometimes. They're not particularly stimulating conversationalists." Dawson chuckled. "Better than my old cow dog. He just looks at me like I've lost my mind whenever I try to discuss cattle prices with him." Their shared laughter felt good, natural, and easy in a way Dawson hadn't experienced in years. As it faded, a comfortable silence settled between them. "At least stay through tomorrow," Willow finally said. "Give Lily 1 more day to build her strength. And—" she hesitated, then continued with quiet dignity, "and it would give me peace of mind to be certain she's truly on the mend before you take her home." Put that way, Dawson could hardly refuse. 1 more day," he agreed. "But then we really must get back. I've got animals that need tending, and I've already been away longer than I planned." Willow nodded, relief evident in her expression. "Thank you." That night, as Dawson settled onto the pallet Willow had made up for him near the fire, he found himself thinking about the woman sleeping in the alcove just a few feet away. In the span of 3 days, Willow James had become more than a stranger, more than a caregiver for his sick child. She had become someone he admired, someone he enjoyed talking to, someone whose presence made the world seem a little less harsh. The realization was unsettling. Since Emma's death, he had closed off that part of himself, focusing entirely on Lily and the ranch. The idea of opening his heart to someone new had seemed impossible, a betrayal of Emma's memory, and a risk he wasn't willing to take. Yet here he was, lying awake in a stranger's cabin, thinking about the curve of Willow's smile and the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. Wondering what it would be like to come home to her presence each day, to see her and Lily working together in their herb garden, to share his thoughts and dreams with someone who seemed to understand him without words. It was too soon, he told himself firmly. Too soon and too complicated. Willow had her life here, and he had his responsibilities at the ranch. They were 2 people thrown together by circumstance, nothing more. But as sleep finally claimed him, Dawson couldn't quite convince himself that was true. The next day passed with a bittersweet quality that neither Dawson nor Willow acknowledged openly. Lily, oblivious to the undercurrents between the adults, enjoyed a morning of herb lessons with Willow, proudly identifying sage and mint and rosemary by their distinctive smells. "You're a natural lily flower," Willow praised, her voice warm with genuine admiration. "You have a gift for healing, I think." Lily beamed at the compliment. "Like you, just like me," Willow confirmed, glancing up to find Dawson watching them from the doorway. Something passed between the adults, a recognition of the bond forming between the woman and the child, and the knowledge that it would soon be interrupted by their departure. After lunch, when Lily was resting, Dawson helped Willow with her chores, chopping wood for her pile, making minor repairs to the chicken coop, bringing in water from the well. They worked side by side with an ease that belied their short acquaintance, speaking little but communicating much through glances and small gestures. As the afternoon waned, they sat on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the mountains in hues of gold and pink. Lily was inside, napping after her most active day since the illness began. "Thank you," Dawson said after a comfortable silence. "Not just for Lily's life, though that debt can never be repaid. But for all of this," he gestured at the cabin, the yard, the domestic scene they had temporarily created together. "For making us feel at home." Willow's expression softened. "It's been—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Healing," she finally said, "for me as well as Lily." Dawson studied her profile, memorizing the straight line of her nose, the curve of her jaw, the way the evening light caught in her honey-brown hair. "I wish," he began, then stopped himself. Willow turned to look at him directly. "What do you wish, Dawson?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities. Dawson took a deep breath. "I wish circumstances were different," he said finally. "I wish we'd met some other way at some other time." Understanding flickered in Willow's green eyes. "As do I," she said softly. "But we can't change how things are." "No," Dawson agreed. "We can't." Another silence fell, this one charged with unspoken feelings. Finally, Willow stood, brushing dust from her skirt. "I should check on Lily and start preparing supper. Your last night here should be a special one." Dawson watched her go, a heaviness settling in his chest that had nothing to do with concern for Lily's health. Supper that evening was indeed special venison stew with dumplings, fresh bread, and a wild berry compote that Lily declared was better than cake, almost. The atmosphere was deliberately cheerful, with Willow telling stories of her grandmother's exploits as a midwife in Boston that had Lily giggling and Dawson shaking his head in amused disbelief. "She really delivered twins on a ferry boat?" Lily asked, eyes wide with wonder. "She did," Willow confirmed, "and named them both after the captain, who fainted dead away when he realized what was happening on his deck." Laughter filled the cabin, pushing back the melancholy of imminent departure. After the meal, as Lily helped Willow wash the dishes, insisting she was strong enough for this simple task, Dawson found himself watching them again, his heart conflicted. When Lily was finally tucked into bed, exhausted but happy, Dawson and Willow returned to the porch, neither quite ready to end the evening despite the early start they would need the next day. The night was clear, with a crescent moon hanging low over the mountains and stars scattered across the vast Montana sky. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine and sage, reminding Dawson of home even as he found himself increasingly reluctant to return there. "Your ranch," Willow said after a while, breaking the comfortable silence. "Is it very far from here?" "Half a day's ride," Dawson replied. "Maybe less if the trail's dry. It's in the next valley over near Pine Creek." Willow nodded, absorbing this information. "Not so very far, then." "No," Dawson agreed. "Not so far at all." Their eyes met in the silvery moonlight, and Dawson found himself moving closer to her on the step, drawn by something he couldn't name. When his hand found hers, her fingers curled around his without hesitation. "Willow," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know how to say this or if I even should, but I know," she interrupted gently. "I feel it too, this connection. It's unexpected and perhaps unwise, but it's there nonetheless." Relief washed through him at her understanding. "It seems impossible," he said, "to feel this way after such a short time, and yet—" Willow echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Dawson reached up with his free hand, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. When she didn't pull away, he cupped her cheek, his calloused palm rough against her soft skin. "May I?" he asked, his gaze dropping to her lips. In answer, Willow leaned forward, meeting him halfway. The kiss was gentle, at first tentative, questioning but quickly deepened as years of loneliness and unspoken longing found expression. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing quickly, startled by the intensity of their connection. "I didn't expect this," Willow admitted, her voice unsteady. "When you rode into my yard with Lily in your arms, I never imagined." "Nor did I," Dawson said. "But now I can't imagine riding away tomorrow and never seeing you again." Willow's eyes searched his face. "What are you saying, Dawson?" He took a deep breath, knowing he was about to step off a precipice but unable to stop himself. "I'm saying that I'd like to come back, that I'd like to see where this might lead if you're willing." A slow smile spread across Willow's face, transforming it in the moonlight. "I'm willing," she said softly. "More than willing." They spent another hour on the porch, talking of practical things now when Dawson might return, what challenges they might face, how Lily would feel about the development between them. When they finally went inside, there was a new warmth between them, a shared understanding that something precious had begun. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it the inevitable preparations for departure. Lily was clearly reluctant to leave, clinging to Willow as Dawson saddled his horse and packed their few belongings. "Can't Miss Willow come with us, Papa?" she asked, lower lip trembling slightly. Dawson knelt before his daughter, stroking her hair gently. "Miss Willow has her own home and work here, Lily Flower, but we'll see her again soon, I promise." "How soon?" Lily persisted. Dawson glanced at Willow, who stood in the doorway of the cabin, her expression a mixture of affection and wistfulness. "Very soon," he assured Lily. "Maybe next week if Miss Willow would like that." "I would like that very much," Willow said, coming to join them in the yard. She knelt beside Dawson, taking Lily's small hands in hers. "And in the meantime, I've made something for you." She produced a small cloth bag tied with a ribbon. "It's a special tea," she explained. "To help your lungs finish healing, 1 cup each morning until it's gone. Will you remember?" Lily nodded solemnly, clutching the bag to her chest. "I'll remember, and I'll practice my herbs too so I can show you when you come to visit." "That would make me very happy," Willow said, her voice thick with emotion. She pulled the child into a gentle embrace, closing her eyes briefly as Lily's arms wound around her neck. Watching them, Dawson felt his heart swell with a complicated mixture of love, gratitude, and hope for the future. When Willow finally released Lily and stood, he stepped forward, taking her hand in his. "Thank you," he said simply, knowing the words were inadequate but unable to express the depth of his feelings in any other way. Willow squeezed his hand. "Ride safely," she said, "and come back to me." The last was said softly, for his ears alone. Dawson nodded, bringing her hand to his lips in a gesture that made her cheeks flush. "Count on it," he promised. The ride home was filled with Lily's chatter about Willow, her herb knowledge, her kindness, her promise to teach Lily more when they returned. Dawson listened with half an ear, his mind occupied with plans and possibilities, his heart lighter than it had been in years. As they crested the final ridge and the ranch came into view in the valley below, Dawson felt a momentary twinge of guilt. This had been his and Emma's dream, their home, the place where they had planned to raise their children together. Was it a betrayal of her memory to bring another woman into this life? But as he glanced down at Lily, who had finally fallen silent as exhaustion caught up with her, he knew Emma would have understood. She would have wanted both of them to be happy, to have love and companionship in their lives. And Willow, with her quiet strength, her healing hands, her gentle way with Lily, was exactly the kind of woman Emma would have approved of. "We're home, Lily Flower," he said, urging the horse down the slope toward the ranch buildings nestled in the valley. "Let's get you settled, and then I need to check on the animals." The next few days were busy with catching up on ranch work that had been neglected during their absence. Dawson found a neighbor who had kindly fed the livestock, but there were repairs that needed attention, cattle that needed to be moved to fresh pasture, and 100 other tasks that consumed his time and energy. Through it all, thoughts of Willow were never far from his mind. Each night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she would ask when they would visit Miss Willow again, and each night Dawson promised it would be soon. Finally, a week after their return home, Dawson saddled his horse and Lily's gentle pony. "Ready to see Miss Willow?" he asked as he lifted his daughter into the saddle. Lily's face lit up with excitement. "Really, Papa, today," he confirmed, mounting his own horse. "If we ride steady, we'll be there by midday." The journey seemed shorter this time, unburdened by fear and desperation. As they approached Willow's cabin, Dawson felt an unfamiliar nervousness. Would she be as glad to see them as they were to see her? Had the connection they'd felt been real, or merely a product of the intense circumstances? His doubts vanished the moment they rode into the yard. Willow emerged from the cabin, shading her eyes against the sun, her face breaking into a radiant smile at the sight of them. "You came back," she said simply as Dawson dismounted and lifted Lily from her pony. "We promised we would," he replied, setting Lily down and watching as she ran to Willow with a happy cry. Willow knelt to embrace the child, her eyes never leaving Dawson's face. "And do you always keep your promises, Dawson Griffith?" She asked over Lily's shoulder, her tone light but her eyes serious. "Always," he assured her, closing the distance between them. "Especially the important ones." That visit was the first of many over the summer months. Sometimes Dawson and Lily would spend the day at Willow's cabin, helping with chores or learning about her herbs and medicines. Other times, Willow would ride to the ranch, where Dawson showed her the land he loved and the life he had built. With each visit, the bond between them deepened. Dawson found himself sharing thoughts and feelings he had kept locked away since Emma's death. Willow, in turn, opened up about her own grief and the healing she had found in the Montana wilderness. As autumn approached, painting the mountains in hues of gold and crimson, Dawson knew it was time to take the next step. He arranged for Lily to stay with a neighbor family for the evening and rode alone to Willow's cabin, a small velvet box tucked securely in his pocket. Willow seemed to sense that this visit was different from the moment he arrived. She greeted him with a searching look, then smiled and invited him in for coffee. "No Lily today?" she asked, though she had clearly noticed the child's absence. "She's staying with the Andersons," Dawson explained, accepting the cup she offered. "I wanted to speak with you alone." Willow nodded, taking a seat across from him at the small table. "I'm listening." Dawson took a deep breath, suddenly unsure of the speech he had rehearsed on the ride over. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand. "Willow," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "These past months have been the happiest I've known since Emma died. You've brought light back into my life, into our lives. Lily adores you and I." He paused, gathering his courage. "I've fallen in love with you." Willow's green eyes widened, a flush spreading across her cheeks. "Dawson, let me finish," he said gently. "I know it hasn't been long, and I know we come from different worlds. But I also know that what we've found together is rare and precious. I don't want to lose that." He reached into his pocket and withdrew the small box, placing it on the table between them. "This was my mother's," he said. "I've been carrying it with me for weeks now, waiting for the right moment." Willow stared at the box, then back at Dawson, her expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" In answer, Dawson opened the box, revealing a simple gold ring set with a small emerald. "I'm asking if you would consider becoming my wife," he said. "If you would join Lily and me at the ranch, make a life with us, be the family I believe we were meant to be." Tears filled Willow's eyes, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she whispered. "Oh, Dawson, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms, sealing their promise with a kiss that spoke of love, commitment, and the future they would build together. 3 weeks later, on a crisp October morning, Willow James became Willow Griffith in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Lily served as flower girl, scattering wildflower petals with gleeful abandon. Neighbors and friends from the surrounding area gathered to witness the union and share in the celebration afterward. As twilight fell and the guests began to depart, Dawson found his new wife standing on the porch, gazing out at the mountains. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, breathing in the lavender scent of her hair. "Happy?" he asked softly. Willow turned in his embrace, her green eyes luminous in the fading light. "More than I ever thought possible," she assured him. "It feels like coming home even though I've never lived here before." "It is home," Dawson said. "Our home, yours, mine, and Lily's." As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the doorway, yawning widely. "Papa, Mama Willow, is it bedtime yet?" The simple title bestowed spontaneously by the child just days earlier and embraced wholeheartedly by both adults brought tears to Willow's eyes. She reached for Lily, drawing her into their embrace. "Yes, sweetheart," she said. "I think it's bedtime for all of us." Later that night, with Lily sleeping soundly in her room and the house settling into peaceful silence around them, Dawson and Willow lay in each other's arms, talking quietly about the future. I want to set up a proper still room, Willow said, tracing patterns on Dawson's chest. For my medicines and herbs, there's that small room off the kitchen that would be perfect with a few shelves and a work table. Consider it done, Dawson promised, pressing a kiss to her temple. And there's talk of Pine Creek needing a midwife. The nearest doctor's in Boulder City, too far for most women's comfort. Willow's eyes lit up at the prospect. I could help a lot of people, she said thoughtfully. And with the wagon you're fixing up, I could visit homesteads further out like I used to do in Boston. You'd be good at it, Dawson said, pride evident in his voice. The best midwife in the territory, I'd wager. Willow smiled, snuggling closer against his side. And you, any plans for the ranch? Been thinking about expanding the herd, Dawson admitted, and maybe breeding more horses. That black mare of yours gave me some ideas. Crosses with my stallion could produce some fine stock. They continued to talk until the oil lamp burned low, dreaming and planning together as new lovers have done since the beginning of time. When they finally drifted towards sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, both felt a sense of rightness, of completion, that neither had expected to find again in this life. Spring came to the valley with a riot of wildflowers and the birth of new calves and foals. The ranch flourished under the care of both Dawson and Willow, who had settled into their shared life with surprising ease. Lily, now nearly 5, thrived with Willow's loving guidance, soaking up knowledge about plants and healing even as she learned her letters and numbers. Word of Willow's skills as a midwife and healer had spread through the surrounding area, bringing a steady stream of patients to the ranch and calls to attend births in neighboring homesteads. Dawson had built her the promised still room, which now buzzed with activity as Willow prepared tinctures, salves, and medicines for those in need. On a warm May evening, as they sat on the porch watching Lily chase fireflies in the gathering dusk, Willow turned to Dawson with a smile that held a secret. I have something to tell you, she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat abdomen. We're going to have a baby. Dawson's eyes widened, joy and a flicker of fear crossing his features in quick succession. Are you certain? Willow nodded, understanding his concern. After Emma's death in childbirth, the prospect of another pregnancy would naturally bring mixed emotions. I'm certain, she assured him. And I'm healthy and strong with none of the complications Emma had. Besides, she added with a smile, I have the advantage of being a midwife myself. I know what to do and what not to do to keep both me and the baby safe. Dawson pulled her close, burying his face in her honey brown hair. A baby, he whispered, wonder replacing fear in his voice. Our baby. When they shared the news with Lily the next morning, her reaction was everything they had hoped for. She danced around the kitchen, clapping her hands with delight at the prospect of becoming a big sister. Can I help take care of the baby? She asked eagerly. I'm very good with the kittens in the barn and Papa says I'm gentle. You'll be the best big sister any baby could ask for, Willow assured her, drawing the child into a warm embrace. And yes, you can help in lots of ways. Throughout the summer and into the fall, Willow's pregnancy progressed smoothly. Her body changed, growing round with new life, but she remained active and vibrant, continuing her work as a healer while preparing for the baby's arrival. Dawson watched over her with a protectiveness that might have been smothering had Willow not understood its source. Instead of chafing under his concern, she reassured him with her own confidence and the evidence of her continuing good health. As winter approached and the first snows dusted the mountains, they prepared the ranch for the coming season. Hay was stored in the barn, preserves lined the cellar shelves, and a new cradle, crafted by Dawson's own hands, waited in the corner of their bedroom. The baby came on a cold January night, with snow falling gently outside the windows and a fire crackling in the hearth. Unlike Emma's difficult, prolonged labor, Willow's proceeded smoothly under the guidance of a neighboring woman who had assisted at many births. Dawson remained close at hand, following Willow's calm instructions and providing steady support. As dawn broke softly over the snowy landscape, their son slipped into the world with a lusty cry that echoed through the ranch house. Lily, who had been sleeping in the next room, came running at the sound, her eyes wide with excitement. Is that the baby? she whispered, peering at the small bundle in Willow's arms. It is, Willow confirmed, her face radiant despite her exhaustion. Come meet your brother, Thomas Dawson Griffith. Named for both Willow's first husband and his own father, the baby had Dawson's dark hair and strong features but Willow's striking green eyes. As Lily climbed carefully onto the bed to get a closer look, the family circle felt complete in a way that Dawson had never dared to hope for after Emma's death. Looking at his wife and children, this family that had formed from tragedy and chance, from a desperate ride and a fever that had nearly taken his daughter's life, Dawson felt a gratitude so profound it nearly overwhelmed him. Thank you, he whispered to Willow as Lily gently touched her new brother's tiny fingers with wonder. Willow looked up, understanding in her eyes. For what? For everything, Dawson said simply. For saving Lily, for loving us both, for this new life. He gestured to the baby, then to the room, the house, the life they had built together. For all of it, Willow smiled, reaching for his hand. I should be thanking you, she said softly. You rode into my yard that day and brought me back to life. I had medicine and knowledge, but you and Lily gave me purpose again. Love again. As the sun rose higher, painting the snow-covered mountains in shades of gold and pink, the Griffith family welcomed their newest member with joy and thanksgiving. Outside, the Montana wilderness stretched vast and beautiful around the ranch, a reminder of the harshness and splendor that had brought them all together. And inside, in the warmth of their home, Dawson and Willow held each other's gaze over the heads of their children, secure in the knowledge that sometimes the greatest healing comes not from medicine or science, but from the unexpected gift of love found in the midst of crisis. It had begun with a desperate ride, a fevered child and a midwife's skilled hands. It had culminated in a family forged through compassion, respect, and a deepening love that neither had expected to find again. And as dawn broke softly over their shared future, both Dawson and Willow knew with absolute certainty that they had found their true home not in a place, but in each other.